It's Thoughtful Thursday here on The Joe Show, and today I was thinking, we're surrounded by fake news all the time. So how do we in our brains know fact from fiction? How do we separate the factual from the probable? Well, a new study that just came out on the 7th of December this year shows us how our brains react to the language of the factual versus the language of the probable. It's The Joe Show. I am positive that you know the words that we choose convey different messages. Word choice is very, very important. But this new study shows that word choice actually affects how our brain processes that information, which is nuts. Just changing the words of a sentence, different parts of our brain light up when we hear it, meaning we process that information differently. In fact, our brains appear to be particularly sensitive to information presented with underlying factual language. The study comes from Lena Pilkanen out of New York's Department of Psychology and Department of Linguistics. Researchers have already understood for a while now that brains respond in a variety of ways to different word choices. Less clear, however, has been the distinction between processing words and language that convey facts versus processing words and language that convey possibility or probability. The goal of the study was to figure out how the brain processes modal words such as may or might. Something like, there is a monster under my bed versus there might be a monster under my bed. To test this, it actually sounds pretty easy. The researchers put together what I would call an audio journey, or just a bunch of sentences said in audio that said things like, knights carry large swords, so squires do too, which is factual language. And also, if knights carry large swords, the squires do too. I'm sure you can see the difference. One is saying knights carry large swords, so the squires do too. The other says, if a knight does, maybe a squire will too. But if a knight doesn't, a squire might also carry a large sword. You know what I mean, ladies? Is that a sword in your pants, or are you just here to slay a dragon? To see how their brains reacted, the researchers hooked them up to an MEG scanner, or a magnetoencephalopathy. Oh my God. Also known as a magnetoencephalography scanner. Woo! It's a technique that maps how our brain is working by measuring the magnetic field given off when our brain produces electrical current, aka thought process. Jumping right to the results, the study showed that factual language led to a rapid increase in this activity in our brain and these magnetic fields being generated, with the brain responding more powerfully and showing more engagement with factual sounding phrases and scenarios compared to ones expressing possibility or probability. As researcher Pilkanen explains, facts rule when it comes to the brain. Brain regions involved in processing discourse rapidly differentiated facts from possibilities, responding much more robustly to factual statements than non-factual ones. These findings suggest that the human brain has a powerful perspective-adjusted neural representation of factual information and, interestingly, much weaker, more elusive cortical signals reflecting the computation of mere possibilities, which does seem a little counter to what I would believe. If we hear possibility, I would expect our brain to compute more heavy to think about all the possibilities of, like, what if a knight doesn't have a sword? What if it's a small sword? Then what does a squire do? What if the knight is carrying an axe instead of a sword? Can the squire carry an axe, or does he have to carry a sword? All these other thoughts that you would imagine, but no. Instead, if they're presented factually, a knight does carry a sword, so a squire does. Then I guess what happens is we start asking all these questions. But what if a knight carries an axe instead of a sword? Will the squire carry an axe? What if the knight is a lady? Would the squire be a lady? What if the knight, it was a kid knight? What if it was a black knight? Shout out to Martin Lawrence. That is a great movie. You should go back and watch it. But coming full circle back to the beginning of this discussion, word choice impacts this so heavily. If you just throw in a might or a may, all of a sudden the person that you're communicating a message to is going to process the information in a much different way than if you just state it as a fact. And I think this is one of the reasons why someone like Donald Trump has been so successful in office. He's using language and saying things as fact. He very rarely communicates in mights and mayhaves. He's always communicating in this is how it is, which means that his followers actually engage with the things that he says, something like, I had McDonald's for lunch today. They engage with that even heavier than if he would say, I might have McDonald's today. They're like, wow, he's having McDonald's. I think about McDonald's now. What would I have at McDonald's? Where if he says he may have McDonald's, they're like, not that interesting. Don't really care about it. When I say it in this context, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. But this becomes really dangerous in the context of fake news, because fake news is presenting itself as factual. It never says things like, oh, there's an underground ring of liberals that are ostrich fighting. We don't know. It always says there is an underground ring of ostrich fighting liberals that then drink their blood to gain superpowers. It states it as a fact, and thus the people that are interested in it engage with it even more because they're perceiving it as fact and they're perceiving it as engageable. And I'm actually really unclear how to apply this to fake news and have something worthwhile come out of it. Because fake news presents itself as fact a lot of the time, and we're talking about word choice here. So if fake news is choosing words that present it as fact, it would be very hard to train an algorithm or do anything to go search out for fake news, because you would assume fake news would say might or maybe, but it's not saying those things, it's saying it is this thing. But then if something is saying it is this, how do we choose if that is real or false? This is a really hard thing. So this study, though very interesting, doesn't really help us fight fake news, but it does give us some insight into how our brain may process language and facts in general, which I guess is pretty interesting. So if you're looking for a solution on how to solve fake news, I don't think it is in this particular study, unless you can somehow isolate fake news and then add in maybe, might, possibly. Then our brains tend to not engage as much. Maybe that will turn people off and destroy the fake news story. Don't know. What do you think though? Let me know in the comments. Is word choice something you actually think about? I think about it all the time. I think language is very powerful, and the word choices that we make is also very important in conveying our messages. This study helps prove it. I find it super interesting. That's my Thoughtful Thursday. Hope you got something out of it. Like I said, if you did, hit that subscribe button and mash that bell to let me know you enjoyed this video, and come back every Thursday to get more thoughtful content and help fight fake news. Until next time, I hope you think about something cool, because you know what? I love you.